Once they realized that there was only so much they could sell us, they went searching for a new product. That led to the new web, and their new product is us. We are not the users of this system. We are being used by this system. And the reason that you say you don't care about this is, and I say this without any offense intended whatsoever, is because you do not understand the way that that system is being used against you. And that's not due to a failing as you as an individual. That is by design. These companies do not want you to understand how it is being used. They work with lawyers.
How is it being used against me?
It's profiling you. It is basically creating what's called a pattern of life and a social graph, not just for you, but for everyone. And this means that even if you're trying to do something anonymously, let's say you have something like a cancer scare, right? And you want to look up an oncology clinic. You want to call a doctor, or there's a Planned Parenthood thing happening with a young woman. All of these different things, you just want a moment to seek help. You're in a vulnerable state. And you try to open like a private browser window. By the way, that doesn't work for the kind of tracking that we're talking about here on the network level, just for anybody listening. But a lot of people think it does. And they reassociate your identity based on what's called a fingerprint that they've established of your browser, of your device, of your logins. Google's doing these things on your phone. Apple's doing these things on your phone to different extents. But the idea is they're trying to encapsulate not just what you are, but how you think, how you live, who you interact with, to make you a value in a database, in a set, in a solution that can then be influenced and controlled. And when you ask what they're doing to you, right, this is where people start to lose it, because it feels like an abstraction. It's not clear to them because they haven't seen, a neighbor get marched off on the street, as happened in like World War II, kind of Nazi uprising context, where you've got data sets that were constructed for like a census by a group like IBM, and then it's abused and applied to a different purpose. And we went, well, it's harmless, it's a census, it's something that you want. You don't see how these things are going to be applied later. But what they are doing today, in the most concrete form, as I said, is they are collapsing everything about you into a known value that can then be manipulated. That is the beginning and the end of the system. They want to make you controllable. We talked about mass surveillance before, how it's not effective in the context of surveillance. What is it effective for? It is this kind of intelligence surveillance, which is a means of influence, right? People ask me about terrorism and they go, why weren't these effective for the program or for stopping terrorism? And it's because they were never designed to stop terrorism. They are about diplomatic manipulation. They're about social influence. They're about an informational advantage. They are about power. The corporate variant is about the same thing. When you look at all of these things where we've talked about in the past, like election interference, and this last wave was really ugly with political advertising and targeting, that is just the smallest part of a very big game. The bottom line is power is derived from many means. It can be from violence, it can be from law, it can be from money, financial influence, right? But the new means of influence, the one that is most easily hidden and the one that is the most reliable at scale, which you can't buy off everyone in the world, you can't murder them all if you want to have something to control. And even with law, there are lawbreakers, right? There are the edge cases there. With information applied at the right time, in the right way, you can change behaviors. When you see a banner ad, they're trying to shape your behavior to sell you a new pair of shoes. But they can also control what you see, and in enough time, and this has been studied by academics, what you believe. Facebook which is a big company, you know, where we're not talking like a small startup that's a little bit shady here. They ran their own psychological studies on, you know, the the current population to see if they could make you angry. They intentionally wanted to manipulate their users'
And
state.
it worked.
See if
They
they could make
did.
you sad. And it worked. Exactly. You are correct, right? This is controlling human behavior by a private company. For what end? Just to see if they could. Well, the next variants, and this was years ago, are not going to be just to see if they could. It is going to be for their advantage. It is going to be to shape laws. It is going to be to shape elections. And it is going to be to shape individual outcomes. They are going to change lives. It might be good for you, right? You might get a job that you didn't expect to have, but it could also be very, very bad for you. And I think for a significant portion of the population, it will be.
I don't feel threatened. You make a good case why I should. I'm not scared of Amazon or Facebook because, yes, they want to manipulate me, but I'm a little scared of the algorithm and how it might divide America by feeding us more of what we believe and push us apart more. But basically, they want my money, and to get my money in a free market, company has to give me what I want, and that's a good thing.
Even if we look at this from the most libertarian perspective, when we talk about the free market operating, we are presuming that there is open competition. We are presuming that there is fair competition. We do not live in a perfect world. We do not have the benefit of a perfect market. There are monopolies that exist. There are companies that exploit flaws in regulations and the moats that have been granted to them. And it's hard to find a better example of this than a lot of the internet giants as they exist today. And so I think it's fair to recognize that even though, free market, even though we have consumer choice, even though we can do other things, that only is true where there is an alternative, where there is a reasonable competitor that can provide the same service, or that it's even possible to launch a competitor to these things. And I don't believe this is true in that larger sense.